there is a new way to promote sustainable fish harvesting across Canada. It's called the Whale Safe Fishing Gear Strategy. The 5-year plan aims to implement ropeless fishing gear, allowing harvesters to fish while whales are present without harming them. So for more, I'm joined by Gilchrist, Director of National Programs at Fisheries and Oceans Canada. It's good to have you join us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I guess first off, just paint a picture for people that maybe don't know, like how whales have been impacting fishing on the Atlantic and East Coast over the last couple of years.
Over the last several years, there's been a number of entanglements of endangered species like North Atlantic right whale. These are species on virtually the brink of extinction. And the way they get entangled is that they traverse an area, whether they're feeding or interacting with other whales or breeding or transiting, they get caught in vertical lines in fishing gear. And oftentimes these vertical line entanglements lead to serious injury or death.
Yeah. So what is it about this ropeless fishing gear that reduces whale entanglements?
Ropeless fishing gear provides harvesters with the opportunity to set traps and pots, so for example, for lobster and crab, while removing that vertical line for the duration of that gear being in the water. So typically you have a buoy at the surface, a vertical line in the water, and then a trap, so that the harvester can pull that gear. That trap, buoy, and line rest in the water for an amount of time, days, weeks, and when they arrive, they pull that gear out. During that time in the water, that's where the entanglement threat is for those baleen whales. Rope-on-demand gear allows the rope to rest with an uninflated buoy at the trap on the seafloor. There's no vertical line for the duration of when that trap is in the water. It only inflates and rises to the surface with that vertical line when harvesters arrive to retrieve the gear and the catch.
How does it inflate? Like, how do they inflate that buoy at the time when they need it to rise up to the surface?
Harvesters have digital tools on board the vessel, so they can locate the gear with those digital tools, and they can trigger that inflation device for the buoys to rise to the surface. And again, no interaction with whales for that. So it's a prevention tool for entanglements.
Oh, got it. Okay, that's very interesting. I mean, has there been trial runs? Is this already in use? Like, how have harvesters been? What's the feedback you've been getting from people who are using these tools?
Right. Because of the risk to North Atlantic right whales in their range, both in Canada and the U.S., harvesters in Canada and the U.S. have been leading the way in trialing this type of gear. And for example, in the Gulf of St. Lawrence, where right whale presence is increasing because of changes in water temperatures and food sources, fishers like snow crab have been trialing this and successfully sending product to market. It's not a requirement in Canadian fisheries yet because we have to make sure this gear is safe and effective to use, and it has to be reasonably cost effective for harvesters to make a living while using this new technology. But the innovation is increasing every day, and the application of the technology is increasing every day, and the Whale Safe Gear Strategy will help us get there.
Is there a timeline or a hope at when this could actually be regulated and be in use?
The timeline for the Whale Safe Gear Strategy is 5 years. The timeline for piloting rope on demand is in the next few years. Again, we're not going to require harvesters to use rope on demand if it's not safe for them to do so. There are a lot of things for us to work with harvesters and fisheries associations on the water, both Indigenous and non-Indigenous harvesters, to make sure rope on demand works. And we'll identify areas where it's most needed, for example, with the most co-occurrence with endangered whale species and those fisheries. And in areas where they don't co-occur or there isn't a high risk of entanglement, it wouldn't necessarily be needed.
You talked also about cost effective. You have to make sure that it's cost effective for harvesters. Obviously, like the fishing industry, huge on the east coast of Canada. How will this new gear, I'm not sure if there's any data out yet to show how it would affect like a yearly catch, for example.
I don't think there is data, you're correct, on how this would be operationalized in a fishery because it doesn't really exist as a normal course of business for a fishery really anywhere in the world right now. It'll take time. And of course, as usage increases, the cost will come down for this type of gear. There are other less costly versions of whale safe gear, but some of them are more mitigation measures, as in low breaking strength fishing gear. The rope will break at a point where the whale can self-release, but this is a mitigation measure, requires the entanglement to occur, whereas that on-demand gear prevents the entanglement in the first place. So in the next 2 years, we'll be identifying areas that are most important for this kind of technology and working with harvesters to set up ways to pilot this gear.
Yeah, it's a great idea, like a great design. And I take your point that this gear is not actually in use yet, but I mean, how could it shape the future of fishing on the East Coast? Like, is there more gear like this that's coming out, do you think?
There is, and there's a lot of companies producing this kind of gear, both in Canada and the U.S. And it's an emerging industry in and of itself, the creation of this kind of gear. But of course, it's critical for fish harvesters to be able to fish when whales are present, ideally, because right now they have to move their gear in Canada in the East Coast if a right whale shows up, and that could be a constant challenge throughout the season and expensive for harvesters. So this technology would allow them to fish at the same time as whales are present. And as more harvesters adopt this, as more harvesters learn about that, the price point will come down for this expensive technology, and more participants creating this type of gear will be involved.
So in the long run, then you'd see like more profitability for the fishing industry and for harvesters.
Absolutely. And of course, they get to fish. That's the bottom line, is they'll be able to fish rather than having to move their gear out of the way and move it back after the whales are gone. Right whales, for example, spend basically from the spring to the end of the fall in Canadian waters. So it gets quite complicated trying to find space for harvesters.
Okay, so interesting. Really appreciate your time today, Brett Gilchrist. I really learned a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's about Brett Gilchrist, Director of National Programs, Fisheries and Oceans Canada.